Today, I wanted to continue the conversation regarding the Gilded Age, and I wanted to focus on H.G. Wells, the famous scientific fiction writer who also wrote nonfiction. And, in our world today, much has really been lost of the 19th century. Almost all the souls that lived within the 1800s are certainly passed on by now. And a generational shift has really sort of occurred here. And with the amount of distraction that we all have at our fingertips, it's difficult to find the time to do these studies. And so I do think it's very important to go back before we can move forward to understand what the plan is of the elites, to understand how they used science and technology, but really the concepts that were created during that time by people like H.G. Wells, who was part of a Royal Society and sort of a cult membership that was a group of elites who, have continued to plan the progress of humanity through their influence. Um, and so there were really two thinkers of that era that I'm studying right now. And one of them is H.G. Wells, and the other is Bertrand Russell. But we'll focus on H.G. Wells tonight. And I will give you an anthroposophy perspective from Rudolf Steiner as well. This is going to be a quick video, a quick preview of really what we're going to be diving into a lot deeper throughout the course of the next few months. And H.G. Wells is really perhaps the most famous scientific fiction author in American history, um, as people know him for The War of the Worlds, Time Machine. He wrote a nonfiction book, which I'm studying now, which is called The World Brain, and this was published in 1937. And really, this is interestingly similar to what we see now with artificial intelligence. And this is a series of writings and lectures given by Wells regarding his interest in social organization. He was a socialist, but he was a socialist in terms of corporations, not necessarily all just kind of Marxism. He actually went against Marx in that framework, and his viewpoint ultimately did win out. He dreamed of a socialist society where corporations sort of merged with the state to control all aspects of our lives. This dream, some say, is taking shape, today, obviously, right? So we have the modern state of affairs that we're in now, and you know, he believed that really the common man was confused on his direction and didn't know how or what to think. Didn't have a purpose beyond a 9 to 5 job. He thought that connecting man with the world brain would bring about a utopia. And really, the modern day smartphone has accomplished this world brain or world encyclopedia concept, as he called it as well. Um, and, through really the education system, the media propaganda, social media, elitist class, the classes really have shaped, um, the 99% of us. And, um, this initial sort of movement by Wells and many philosophers of the Gilded Age, they really also got their concepts from Darwinism. And I think Darwinism really sort of started this whole movement in a way. And it's very interesting to understand how that came about, but that is a story for another day. The way that they were able to make an excuse for these scientific experiments that they have been running on us for these 170 years, really came from Darwinism, because we are just, primates, right? We're just evolved animals. We don't necessarily have a soul or a spirit. Excuse me. And they were able to then take this concept and run with it in a way that if we're just evolved from the Stone Age, we need to be educated, we need to be reformed by the state to live a meaningful life, according to them, right? Um, what was man to do with his life? This was Wells' ultimate question that he asked many times throughout his writings. He ultimately pushed a utopian mindset and his socialism ideals by creating a problem. He would always create a problem and a solution. The fundamental issue, right, of modern day life that has no direction, no meaning, no scientific knowledge for the average man. Um, this was his idea, was to have a mechanical unification of the world. Um, really was his vision. And you can see this playing out now, right? The mechanical unification through artificial intelligence. If you think about artificial intelligence and where they are trying to push it to today, where we will all sort of have these artificial intelligent guides almost as a demonic scientific guardian angel. Um, this was not all necessarily envisioned directly by Wells, but he did lay the groundwork for these concepts that rule the conversation at places like the World Economic Forum today, right? So, um, it's culturally, we live in a society that has really already been unified, which is the economic, social, and political life. They've really been fused together and to essentially destroy our independent way of living and force us into reliance on a state controlled system. Um, the spirit and the soul of the economy has, where we can rely on each other, rely on community, has really been broken as we have, our smartphone in our hand and able to order boxes from Amazon to come right to our door. We don't necessarily need to rely on anyone else except the technology, right? It's just the technology that we have to rely on. And this kind of kills the spirit and the soul and the will forces of the human being who is potentially looking to go out there and strive towards something to fight for their food, not in a violent way, but in a way of creating crops and creating things. Um, and so because he sort of believed that we needed to kind of have this almost surveillance of the human being so that we could create paths for the human being through political, social, and economic influence of the state. Um, it's almost a sort of surveillance of humans as if we were an experiment in a lab that needed to be watched and tracked. And we know that that is where they have gone with it at this point. And um, I really truly believe, and this is important, but it's a religious concept, and I don't, I'm not here to convince anyone of any religious concept at all. But I do believe in karma. I believe in reincarnation, and I think that those are two very important things that the Catholic Church has obviously pushed both of those aside. Um, but I think a lot of Catholics, they do believe in some type of karma because they believe that their actions have consequences in the future and they believe that they have an afterlife. So there is some concept of reincarnation and karma, but it's not built out enough to actually make sense at the moment. But that's where anthroposophy comes in for me. And I really believe that the ultimate goal of the elites and the darker forces on this earth is really to eliminate individuality and destiny of karma. Um, without karma from previous lives, we really cease to evolve as spiritual beings in the cosmos. We are evolving as spiritual beings towards an ultimate goal and towards our ultimate destiny to eventually become an angel and then pass through the celestial hierarchies up into the Godhead eventually all the way through if we can do that. I mean, it will take eons to accomplish, but that is why we have to try to live in the eternal mindset, the eternal soul, the eternal spirit during our actions here on earth, because if we do that, we are able to then tap into that eternal mindset that the angels and the archangels and the archai and the exousiai, dynamis, karyotetes, thrones, cherubim and seraphim have tapped into throughout their lives, and that's why they are above us and guiding us as spiritual beings now through the celestial hierarchies, as Saint Dionysius wrote about back in the early time after Christ. So, but getting back to my point about karma, we need pain and suffering. We need decisions within our individual paths so that we can overcome these issues, to evolve, to make mistakes and face karma in the next life, where we will continue to attempt to evolve. What the elites want, without some of them consciously knowing it, but some of them do consciously know this path of that anthroposophy described. They know that it is true, and they have initiates, secret brotherhoods, and things that actually know these things and kind of take us away from that. Um, and so the more mechanized the society becomes, the more we are devolving as spiritual beings. Unfortunately, we are devolving into animals, right? We're actually going backwards in the spiritual evolution, eternal sort of time frame here. Um, and that's ultimately what they want. They want people trapped back here on Earth, and they kind of want to use that energy to create some kind of darker forces that can ultimately sort of um, just kind of span the earth with their technology and different things like that. Um, and the world brain concept, now is known as artificial intelligence, and really this is just the beginning of this attempt to take away our karma, um, because the AI will give you the best answer to your problem. And it's really already started to direct people's decisions and therefore direct their destiny, and therefore eventually direct their karma, right? Because without the consciousness that we all have to guide us in the right directions, and we just kind of use the artificial intelligence to be our therapist, to be our health coach, to be our life coach, to be our, work assistant, we're ultimately getting closer to just becoming the machine, and not really evolving our own consciousness and our own willpower. We are then kind of being subjected and subjugated to the artificial intelligence. And so, what Wells argued um, was, instead of these primates making bad decisions on Earth, why not give them all elite level intelligence to replace the uncoordinated multitude of neurons? And now we see this elite level intelligence, which is AI, and we see neural networks that have been being built out for years, of all the information you could ever possibly have within these networks, to then spit out the proper information that and to go off topic a little bit, but I think that when Sam Altman was fired from OpenAI, it was really for a lot of reasons related to some of this stuff. It's kind of reining it in by the government. You put Larry Summers on the board now. I mean, it's totally captured at this point, right? It's captured by Microsoft. It's captured by, which is also an entity of the government, essentially a monopoly. And then it is also captured by um, the board being completely changed out. So this is really the way that they're inserting the knowledge that they want us to know, so that we can continue to be a cog in the machine, as well as really just making us all more similar in the way we complete tasks, which is our technique. Um, and so, I guess I'll leave you with a quote from Rudolf Steiner, which is, they think, or at least most of them were still thinking only a short time ago. And by the way, this is given in the early 1900s, that until the 19th century, mankind was childish and primitive in respect of understanding and conceptions of the world. Then modern science appeared in its many branches, and now, so it is thought, there exists something that must, through all eternity, be cultivated as the truth. And so they essentially see modern science as this God who has come to Earth to cultivate the truth for the rest of eternity, and they kind of see it as an ultimate truth, right? Um, a dogma, if you will, an objective truth that they believe is not challengeable. And that is why we need to all form our own subjective opinions on what is happening in the world. We need to study these things for ourselves and not just take information in. We have to study, we have to put in the willpower to study these topics so that we can form our own opinion and kind of our own understanding of these things. Um, so that, we can, and then we can study spiritual science as well, um, if you think that's right for you. Um, and that is more of an objective truth about the world, about ourselves, in fact. Anthroposophy is the divine study of the human being. And so it is an objective reality about ourselves, and then we can form a subjective reality of the world. And that is really our ultimate goal as human beings, to evolve here on Earth. And I hope that you got something out of this today, and I hope that you subscribe, like the video, and I will continue to make these. And looking forward to the next one. Have a good night.